Informal meeting of the City Commission is called to order. Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Brown?
Here.
Dr. Estrop?
Here.
Mrs. Houston? Here. Mrs. Tackett?
Here.
Mr. Rue?
Here. City Manager?
Yes, Commission, tonight we have one work session item, and it is to really bring to conclusion a very long project in updating our zoning code. And really saying update isn't accurate because I think it's a complete rewrite. So with us tonight, we have Steve Thompson, who's our Deputy Director of Community Development, and then also Todd Kinski representing ZoneCo LLC, who is the consultant that assisted us with this project. So with that, I'll turn it over to Steve Thompson.
All right, thank you, and good evening, Commissioners. My pleasure to introduce Todd Kinski from ZoneCo. We've had the opportunity to work with him for about a year and a half at this point. Todd will be providing a brief overview of the process we took to develop the code that is before you this evening. Before he begins, I want to take a moment to sincerely thank ZoneCo and Todd, as well as our city planner, Waidehi Agwan. Their hard work and dedication to developing this code was a tremendous effort, and we couldn't have gotten here without their work. This code reflects not only best practices across the nation, but also includes valuable feedback we receive from the public and city staff throughout this entire process. And one last thing, I also want to emphasize that this is a living document. We don't intend to wait another 20 years to rewrite or update this code. Instead, we plan to regularly evaluate how this code is working, identify what could be improved, and bring those proposed amendments to Commission on a regular basis. With that, I'll hand it over to Todd for an overview of the process. After that, we'll open it up for some questions.
Good evening. Thank you for having me here tonight. So I'm going to give a high-level overview of the code changes. I'm going to give a very brief description of the community engagement process we used, and then I'm going to show how we've responded to some of the feedback community on the issue concerns, and then we'll have questions. I do want to point out before I start that we engaged with two companies to help us with the public engagement process. One is the CUDA Studio, and the other is Urban Fast Forward, and we've worked with them. Okay, so just kind of some high-level changes. Most importantly, you'll see in the code, and we'll show you a few examples of using graphics and tables throughout the code to make the code easier for the average reader to understand what's going on. We've changed the format to make it more aligned with the development process. We've added some more administrative decision-making, things that were fairly routine that had to go to various boards or commissions for approval, but they were almost always approved. So we really just codified some standards to make it easier for your staff to review those and make it easier for development to move forward. We've improved many standards, as Steve mentioned, best practices from around the country. We have worked on nearly 100 zoning codes at this point, so we find the best things that work well and work for Springfield and add them. We've taken out a lot of the wherefores and thereofs and those kinds of things and just have the code be written in plain English. And then we have hyperlinks to make it easier for people to use the document. If you're in one section and it gives you a reference to another section, you can just click on it and go there rather than have, scroll, or if you have it printed out. So just trying to really make it more user. So first of all, lots of graphics. It looks like there might be a little bit of, hopefully this doesn't happen on other slides, but anyway, so graphics throughout the code have been added. Tables, so just various pieces of information. Sometimes we're showing a graphic with a table. The idea is that we're putting things in an easy format for you to be able to read and understand what the rules are or what the standard means. Again, hyperlinks, you click on one thing, it takes you to another, makes it easier for you to navigate the code. These are the 9 sections of the code. I'm going to focus on the first 4 because 5 through 9 are all of the things that are process standards for going for non-conforming uses, enforcement rules, that kind of stuff. Things that are not terribly interesting. So I'm going to focus on the first 4 briefly. Well, it looks like. All right. So the most important thing about the first title is that and I'm focusing really on it as this, how to use this code section. So someone who's never dealt with zoning can open it up and actually tells you how the code is structured, gives you the major components in each of the chapters, and kind of shows you how to navigate developments. That is by far a new thing that hopefully is helpful. Title 2 is really interesting, so it's kind of like on that. Okay, Title 2. All right. Maybe I have. Okay, Title 2 is really the districts. So one of the things we did is we reduced the number of districts, 24 to 13, which would be helpful for your staff to be able to administer the code to make it easier. We got rid of plan unit developments. We got rid of the overlay district. We've broken down the uses into 4 main categories: residential. We changed the nomenclature or the titles of the districts to easier to understand. We added clear purpose statements, and then we added dimensional standards that were changed from the current code to make it easier for development. And then we've added, some diagrams that kind of show people conceptually, like, here's how big the lot is. Here's what the dimensional, just to make it easier to understand. Okay, I think we're up. All right. Title 3 is the use standards. So previously, you would have to go to each chapter and scroll through each chapter to find out what was allowed. And so what we've done is we've created one table. It's several pages long, but we have all the districts at the top, all the uses on the left, and then the permission. Tell you if it's permitted, conditional, if it has a limited use, meaning that staff can approve it with certain conditions, or if it's just permitted. So this is a big change. Again, the use, we've broken it down by those 10 use categories. So mixed uses, commercial uses, as you scroll, residential, commercial, they're all separate areas. So you know where to look for it. You know the kind of use that you have, so you know where to start. And then we've just added things. Mainly, we've added a lot of new housing typology, things that were missing that often planners talk about the missing middle. Those are those housing types that the middle income folks often live in, and they weren't readily available in the code. So we've added duplexes and multiplexes. We've added courtyard apartments. We've added several mixed use typologies. So in a city like Springfield, you have buildings that have multiple uses in them. You might have commercial on the first floor and offices up, office on the first floor and residential up. Those things weren't in the code, so they were very difficult to be able to do. It caused, to have to go to boards and commissions to get approval for something that's already in existing development. And then we added some alternative energy systems. So for things like solar and small wind and those things like that are very common, but weren't in the code. And then Title 4, this is the longest section code that has development. So all those things listed in red are broken down and covered in that section. And so we, I'd say a couple things that really are interesting to focus on is we created much better screening standards. There was a big question mark. Development happened. We greatly changed the sign regulations. There were components of the sign regulations that weren't with most recent Supreme Court decisions on signage. So we added several urban design standards into the code. See some of those, right? And probably one of the most exciting things for me is we added infills. So in places like Springfield, where you've seen a lot of demolition neighborhoods, it has been really challenging to rebuild houses there without. So we created standards that make. Okay, stakeholder meetings. Just to give you an idea of some of the organizations that were involved. outreach. So we had a couple of meetings, and I'm going to mention them all, but they're on screen. The showing just, some photographs from the meetings and the people who had dates. So we made the effort, outreach. Here's some of the feedback we received during the meeting. And then just to show you where the meetings were held, and we held them in the 4 quad city. We had flyers and social media posts, city. And so some of the things that that we heard from the community was that we need more housing that's affordable. And so this is where I mentioned we added new typologies. So as you'll see there, those things highlighted: townhouses, 2-unit dwellings, and multi-unit dwellings. They've added and into some of the districts that were previously allowed in. And so those were added to show you again.
You speak in the microphone for us, please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
And so we've added these typologies into the code as a result of the feedback from the community. We also specifically talked about cottage court housing, which is something that exists in many places, but essentially houses on smaller lots clustered in one area. And so we've added a standard for that. It's allowed as a conditional use, but it's something that we've introduced and would be great for an infill site. Again, duplexes and accessory dwelling units. So the diagrams on the top show you the different ways an accessory dwelling unit could be incorporated into a house in a basement and upper level. It could be a separate building. It could be in a garage, it could be in addition to the house, just kind of showing those typologies, and then showing that where it's allowed in what districts, which it's been added in most of the residential zones. And then this is the infill standard that I mentioned. So if you look at the diagram there on the top left, where there's a vacant lot in the middle of 4 houses, and as you probably know, zoning was adopted in Springfield after most of the development was already here. So it was always difficult to meet the standards, because oftentimes the standards were designed for suburban development and not for more of an urban landscape. And that's not a Springfield problem. That happened all over the place. We're fixing these kind of things in a lot of communities where we work. So anyway, the idea is it shows you, like, let's meet the average of those existing uses so it's easier for you to build. And you can either do the average, or you can, there's modification allowances that are just built right into the code there on that bottom right. Again, the mixed use question was brought up. So there's been several new categories of mixed use typologies that were added: live work, the Main Street mixed use, and the vertical mixed use. And again, we've added standards. In many of the districts, they will be allowed by meeting certain requirements that staff can approve, and others have to go through a conditional use review. There was questions about allowing community gardens, and so we created a few standards for those, and some of the residential districts they're allowed, and in one they're conditional, but there are standards for that. And then there were a lot of questions about fencing, screening, landscaping, and so we've added diagrams, we've added photographs and drawings and standards to make it clear about the types of landscaping and screening that can be allowed and should be required based on the type of use that it's next to. So if someone builds a commercial development that's fairly intense next to a single family house, the standards are calibrated such that it's more landscaping or screening than if it were not, or some lower intensity use. And then there were lots of questions raised about non-household animals, which this is get into some of that urban farming kind of thing. Some places call it backyard chickens, or they're called different things. But introducing standards for that. There was also a lot of questions about lighting, and there wasn't a ton of information in the code on lighting, so we're just introducing additional lighting standards and show you the kinds of lights. And then again, the standards for where you are allowed and how many animals you can have in different districts.
Okay, quickly before we go to questions, I've worked with our current zoning code for a number of years, and over that time, you discover weird things that are in there, and you wonder how they got in there. Two, I like to point out, we specify videotape rental as a use in our districts. I can't remember the last time I rented a videotape. I don't even think they sell VCRs. So one thing we tried to do with this code is to avoid using technology related uses or terms that will quickly be outdated. Last thing we want to do is introduce something, then the moment new technology comes along, it becomes obsolete. Another one I like is when it comes to used merchandise stores such as antiques and flea markets. As part of this use, it says small new items such as trinkets may be sold in conjunction with used merchandise up to 50% of gross sales. This is one I wanted to highlight because I don't even want to think about how we would start tracking 50% of sales of small trinkets. Second, this is a good case of something being overly burdensome when it hasn't been a problem. It's unlikely to be a problem in the future, so we're not going to waste time and effort trying to regulate something we don't need to. But again, if something does change, we're more than happy to evaluate it and take a look if our code does need to be amended.
If I could just make one more comment, Springfield is no different than most communities around the country, where zoning was initially adopted as a model code that came from some other community. There was a very common code that was adopted in a lot of Ohio communities. And then what happened is over time, as you used it, it just got amended and amended and amended and amended. And it becomes a code that is burdensome to administer and is stuck in time and doesn't advance with technology and land uses. And so the point here is that this was written comprehensively at one time for the needs of Springfield. And this is not a code you could just pick up and copy and paste the name and put it somewhere else. I mean, this is uniquely Springfield regulations, and it represents the character of the community.
Very good. Well, I've got a couple comments, and then
Sure.
thank you, Dr. Estrop. I appreciate that it's a living document. I thank you for saying that. That's something we can revisit, obviously. You were saying, some of the items, if you listed the 9, I think, chapters or sections, and the 5 or 4 or 5 that maybe are interesting, but they represent a lot of things. They're not interesting or important until people are sitting in the room complaining about them. So I assume that the last part of that, it's more streamlined, friendly for business, but efficient.
Oh, yes. I would say one of the really nice things of the code is for the process, various processes that an applicant would need to go through. There's flow charts created for each one of those that make it very easy to show, where you start and how it proceeds through the various procedures that the city has. One section of that is just definitions.
Sure.
So it's like, you don't need the definitions until you need them, But getting all of the various boards and commissions and their processes, all that clearly stated in similar formats, so it's easy for someone to read through it. Yes, it's a major improvement over what you previously had.
So the commercial area over on Backville, so if this document was in place today, I assume that area would look completely different?
One thing we included in this code is I forget if we actually stipulated or not, but to encourage those drives that connect multiple properties. So it's not funneling all traffic onto Bechtel. Try to encourage those cross-access drives as much as possible, shared parking, so we don't get into what we've seen over the years on Bechtel. Various businesses, there's one way in, one way out, very difficult to turn left. The more we can encourage those cross-access drives, the better, and that's something we try to address in this code.
Excellent. I think Dr. Estrop had his hand up first.
Yes. First of all, I wanted to congratulate you on a tremendous amount of work and a significant improvement to our zoning code. I, like the mayor, appreciate that it's a document that's always in transition as things change. And as we all know, the only thing constant is change. So I'm glad to hear that. For one other comment. I particularly am pleased to see the amount of attention you paid to housing. It is such a critical problem for us in this community, and particularly affordable housing. And now you have provided some new ways for us in partnership with developers to address that in a way that meets all of the zoning requirements. Housing is near and dear to me. It's something I've worked on now for 7 years on the commission, and this will be a significant step forward. So thank you. Got 2 questions. Am I understanding correctly that if I were a developer in, say, Indianapolis, and I was thinking about doing some work here in Springfield, and I wanted to know what the zoning codes were for Springfield, I can now go, or will, assuming the commission approves, I theoretically will be able to go online and check all of that out in advance of doing anything. I don't have to necessarily even drive to Springfield. Am I correct in understanding?
Yeah, that's correct. As opposed to currently where you open up a code, it's hard to even know where to start or
Exactly.
where to even find where your property's zoned. The hope is with this new code, a lot of those fairly basic questions can be answered by the user themselves looking at the code online. And then only calling or emailing if it's a more technical follow-up type question. Hopefully, we'll try to eliminate a lot of that time we spend on basically where do I find this use? Where do I find this district? That should be laid out in this code in a very simple way for anyone if they've never even been to Springfield, Ohio to figure out what they need.
Great. I think that's a significant step forward. Have you, I don't know of a better analogy, so I'll ask it this way. Have you taken this thing for a test drive yet with any of the developers or even your own staff?
With staff, yeah, we've gone through, let's say someone wants to build a garage that's too tall for what it currently allows for. So we've kind of worked through what that variance process looked like. The mayor's point earlier, we've taken out some of that burden of going to a board every time. Let's say you want to build a 17-foot garage and our code limits it to 16. In the past, you would have to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals to get a variance for that 1 foot. When from the street, I doubt the average person can tell the difference between 16 and 17 feet. So it makes sense to include that as part of the administrative review process. So I'm hoping a lot of those types of regulations will help.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner Houston?
Yeah, thank you for your presentation tonight. I'm really also glad regarding the new housing options, especially your point that you made of how difficult it can be to develop infield properties within established neighborhoods. So I'm excited for those new options. I do have just one question pertaining to the community involvement sessions, the 4 that you had. Just curious, how does the Springfield public engagement compare to other municipalities? Was our turnout lower, higher, around? Is that average? Because it seemed a little low to me.
It's unfortunately pretty typical. The average person doesn't quite usually understand if they've never used the zoning code, they don't have an interest in it. Or unless, something has happened near them that they felt victimized by it. So typically, turnout for in-person meetings for zoning is usually pretty low. We have actually we've moved towards an online survey, where we're getting more feedback, but it's just not super interesting to people,
Sure.
though
Thank you.
critically important.
Yeah, thank you.
Commissioner Tack?
Thank you again for your work on this and moving Springfield, and it feels like new age document. I like also that it's a living, breathing document. It feels like it can evolve as we grow with us. So thank you for your work on this. Since we are talking about it being a living document, do you foresee anything that maybe could be coming along down the pipeline that we would see as a change?
Right now, we try to incorporate things when it comes to aerial mobility, so drones, that type of technology. That's been the only thing that I foresee at this point. But then again, things happen so fast. I don't know if Todd has a different perspective.
Well, so for example, I think the vertiports we added and electric charging stations. I mean, I think we're assuming, for example, that standard gasoline stations in the future will be also will charge. And so we looked at some of those. It's hard to predict technology. However, what I talked to Steve about was in two communities where I've worked. I worked in the public sector for 31 years until 1 year ago. So I was Steve for many years. And we always just had a standing committee where every year we would just get together and talk about all the heartaches or little problems that were in the code, and we would make amendments. And so I think that is the best way to be responsive and be adaptive, is to not see the code as this thing you adopted and you update it every 10 years or every 20 years, but you update it as much as you need to. And then it just makes adaptation easier as technology changes.
Thank you. And thank you for the backyard chicken comment.
So I do have one question from your last comment. So, Steve, do we have a plan, or would we be planning to set up something annually as the city just to do that annual review, or biannually?
Ideally, I would like to look at it annually. And just get in that routine and pattern of, okay, it's spring, zoning is going to be coming
Sure.
forward with some amendments. The more we make it a regular occurrence, the more comfortable it will be when we do introduce new parts of the code or any changes. As staff allows, we hopefully can dedicate that time to really take a look at it, get as much input as we can from other stakeholders or the public, and bring forward some amendments moving forward in the future.
Awesome, thank you. When I keep hearing living, breathing document, annual reviews, it takes me immediately to work because it makes me think of an individualized education plan, right? And so scheduling those things out that year before and just counting on it really would make a difference. So sounds cool. Thanks, Steve.
Dr. Estrop.
I was curious in terms of your thinking around rolling this new code out, not only to the public, but to our staff. What are your plans at this point for doing that?
That's a very good question. It's going to take a lot of training. I think first, Waidehi, myself, and our team are just going to have to get really comfortable with it. And then kind of like what we did with public workshops, visiting different departments that work with the code on a regular basis. For instance, service, we work hand in hand with them when it comes to plan reviews, working with them to get comfortable with what the new regulations are and what they will start seeing as what we permit, what we no longer permit any longer. So it's a lot of education. Again, it's that kind of feedback loop about what works, what doesn't, what questions you have, but a lot of coordination with the other departments and those directors to make sure everyone's comfortable.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn the work session?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Brown?
Here.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes. Thank you. Go ahead and let you guys, thanks for being here. We'll start the formal meeting in just a minute. Let you guys clear out. The formal meeting of City Commission's called to order. Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Brown?
Here.
Dr. Estrop?
Here.
Mrs. Houston?
Here.
Mrs. Tackett?
Here.
Mr. Rue?
Here. Let's stand for the invocation. This last week, the community lost a member who served in public office for 2 years in the county commission. Attorney David Harrier passed away this last week. I'd like to have a moment of silence. Follow that pledge. Is there a motion to approve minutes?
So move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Tackett,
Yes.
Mrs. Houston,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mrs. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Rue.
Abstain. We're going to go into, I'm going to go ahead and read a statement before we begin audience comments. The City Commission remains committed to creating a conducive environment for constructive and productive dialogue and engagement for our community. Public comments will remain at the beginning of our time, and after 15 minutes at the beginning of the meetings, we will not receive any more cards. Those wishing to speak will fill out a card with their name and address. They'll present a state-issued ID, and provide the information is correct, they'll be able to speak for their time in the meeting. We will be changing one of our procedures to accommodate. We heard the request of the audience members. So when the person comes up to the podium, they're welcome to say their name, but they don't need to because I will I'll call you by name. I will not be saying addresses any longer. We did hear that this is a concern. We agree. And so we're going to change. As promised, as we've read this statement many times, we'll continue to evaluate to best accommodate and so we can have an environment for good and conductive dialogue. So we do appreciate the feedback that comes from the citizens, whether we agree with you or not. You're here for 3 minutes. And we want to, when you speak, and we want to give you that time to do that. So we are truly committed to making this meeting environment where people have the opportunity to share their ideas, thoughts, and concerns. The commission, the staff are listening. We're taking notes. And while we're honoring our First Amendment principles, the City Commission does reserve the right to regulate time, place, and manner of public comments to ensure that proceedings remain orderly, respectful, and conducive to constructive dialogue. While we fully respect all the First Amendment rights of each individual's, disruptions or any conduct that impedes the orderly progress of a meeting will not be tolerated. Should any individual be escorted or asked to leave due to disruptive behavior on 3 separate occasions, they'll be notified that they are considered trespass and barred from any further future City Commission meetings. After the public comment period, City Commission may respond to matters brought forth during the public comment period, and will also direct the city manager and staff to answer questions during that comment time. If questions need additional follow-up, the city manager or staff will follow with the individual in the next several business days and also post those answers to our website. We have 2 comment cards tonight. I will call Diane Daniels to the podium first.
Hopefully I can do this without falling over. I'm going to start off with a statement that I ended with 2 weeks ago because I don't think you all heard it quite. This is my favorite quote for the rest of the year. I knew there was going to be chaos. I had no idea how bad it was going to be. This is an admission of guilt. Now I have a series of questions. I spent the last couple weeks talking to citizens, both online and in person. And so the first one I have is a question. I understand that you have filed a lawsuit against one of 4 hate groups who paid Little Old Springfield a visit. First of all, question part 1 is who is funding your lawsuit? Question part 2 is what outcome are you expecting? Last year, this is second question. Last year, the state of the city for the first time held a state of the city meeting. It was held at the John Legend Theater. Were you intending to have one this year, and where and when is this your state of the city going to be held? Question 3, out of curiosity, in the form of a question. Has the city ever had an outside agency audit the books? If yes, when was this done? We're talking about someone outside the city of Springfield. Now, before I forget, since the rationale given for our situation has been not enough workers, at what point between, let's say 2012 and now has unemployment here in Springfield been 0 or near 0? Question number 5. Where in the newspaper are public notices posted regarding government business, including zoning, and what about those who do not get the newspaper? And as a public service announcement, I would like every citizen to take a close look at what it means to have home rule, because that is what's happening. Thank you.
Wes Babian?
Mayor and Commission, thank you for the opportunity.
Wes, would you mind moving the mic?
Yes,
There you
there
go.
we
Thank
go.
you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I wish to express my appreciation for the City Commission, staff, public safety services that we receive in what has been an exceedingly complicated and challenging set of issues. Your commitment to continuous improvement, which we just saw a hearing with regard to that, is an important element in the process that can move our community forward. We are in a time of great uncertainty, and that is an understatement. It will take patience, restraint as we move through these days. I personally am concerned about the well-being of our immigrant neighbors who are facing serious jeopardy. I would encourage us all to be kind and understanding of the circumstances that they face. Despite much negative rhetoric aimed at them, many of these immigrant neighbors care deeply about our community and contribute to our well-being. They enrich us. Regarding the greater uncertainty that we face, we cannot be paralyzed by it. One of the lessons that Baron Siegel presents to us by creating the Warming Center this past winter is that we all can do something. There are many ways to volunteer in our community, to be positive, and to act, maybe in small ways, for our community. There's an old wisdom, greater than my own, that's often quoted. It is better to light a candle than to curse the darkness. Thank you for the light that you send out as our leaders.
Wes. That is the end of comment cards. Are you able to have answers for Ms. Diane? I think Jill actually can answer one of the questions about the lawsuit, and we'll start with that, and then
So the Anti-Defamation League, Paul Weiss, and the law firm of Taft pro bono filed a federal lawsuit on behalf of the city of Springfield against the neo-Nazi organization, the Blood Tribe. The second question, the goal of our lawsuit is to send a strong message to extremists and hateful groups and individuals. In the past, legal action has resulted in the collapse of entire extremist groups.
in answer to your question about are we having a State of the City, we just have not scheduled one yet at this point. Brian and I have talked about it, and we just have not scheduled that date yet.
Yes, and just to build on that, we're working to coordinate logistically a date and a location and try to time it as closely with the annual report that comes out as well. To the question of outside agency auditing the books.
Certainly happy to speak to that. So under state of Ohio requirements, the city is required to undergo a financial audit annually. That is oversaw by the Auditor of State of Ohio. They either conduct that audit themselves or it's under their oversight. They select an independent public accounting firm that audits the city's books annually. For the last several years, that has been Clark Schaefer Hackett. Also, since the city receives in excess of $750,000 in federal funds annually, we are subject to the OMB circular for single audit, and that is conducted annually as well. All of this information is available on the Auditor of State's website. I'm also happy to pass along my contact information to discuss those audits.
As it relates to unemployment rates, I'll have to do some additional research to speak to the, I think you asked specifically if it was ever zero or near zero, but I can get you a range of what the unemployment figures have been. And then in the newspaper, city notifications published. Yes, they are. They're published in that publication that's in general circulation, which is our new Sun. which is the requirement by the state of Ohio. We do post our meetings and information about our meetings on our website as well.
Home rule. I'm speak to that.
Yes, so the city of Springfield operates under a home rule charter, which what that means is we have the charter for the city of Springfield acts as our constitution. And so that is something that's been voted on and amended throughout the years by the people themselves. And so the charter is really that governing or guiding document that we utilize that sets up the structure of our government and various aspects of it.
This is something that when mayors get together in the state and other states, this is something that they hold dear and they fight for when state legislature tries to, for example, pass along unfunded mandates. So they mandate the city, municipalities around the state to comply, and that compliance could cost millions of dollars to taxpayers, and we have no say in that. The state passes a law, the city has to comply. So we say that doesn't comply with what we want home rule to be. We know what we basically, we're saying the citizens have said that the charter knows best for the community. That's home rule, in essence. Okay. Did we get all the questions to this point? You go ahead to the mic. You've certainly earned your time to. Don't run. Yes.
Yeah, so these weren't necessarily all my questions. They were just questions that I didn't have answers to. And you were the people with the answers. So I decided, well, I'm not going to go searching for it and track you down. So I just thought I'd ask y'all. So
thank you.
Thank you. No, thank you for answering the questions. Appreciate it.
Mayor Rue, may I
Yeah,
ask
of course. Other
the
commissioners.
city manager a question? If for some reason we didn't have a local newspaper, what are some other opportunities that we could do to publish that? Would it go to Dayton Daily News or?
Yeah, I mean, certainly if that's the paper that's in general circulation, it depends on if the Dayton Daily News was readily available in this area. I mean, we're constantly evaluating ways to get information out because, it used to be the newspaper was the thing to get your information. And so trying our website, social media and so forth are the two best things, I think, right now in trying to get information out.
Yeah, that was a big concern of several people I talked to is what pages are always on it. There was something about zoning and we didn't know about it. Well, put it someplace where the newspaper is not the place people get their news anymore.
Thank you, Diane.
No, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Is it legal to post these type of notices on on social media or on our website?
I'll defer to Jill, but
That is a good.
So it is entirely permissible to post on social media, to post on the website, but we still have to, by the revised code, a newspaper of general circulation.
So we have basically, by state law, we comply with the general circulation, but we also go above and beyond that by posting on social medias.
And where is it located in the paper currently?
it looks like it's under the classified section, which is section C, or in the C section of the paper. And yeah, public announcements.
Yeah, I think it's what I'm hearing is it gets buried and I can't find it. Basically what I'm hearing. It's about that communication thing. We know we have.
Okay. Thank you. It was nice to enjoy a little back and forth just in constructive dialogue. That's not something we'll do in every meeting. But we're not changing the rules just by doing that, but I'm glad we got those questions answered. All right, yes. Commissioners, would you like to make other comments or any announcements or anything before we continue with the legislative agenda? Dr. Estrop?
Just wanted to share with the commission and the public, as we mentioned a couple meetings ago, we're helping to facilitate and become members of a larger group of organizations in our community who are trying to get a handle on the impact of the decisions at the federal level, particularly around budget and funding and grants. And so we've convened, a group has been talking. The problem remains, what's true today may not be true tomorrow. We're having a great deal of difficulty tracking down exactly what is going on in Washington. but we will continue to try to provide to the community as much information as we have that is solid information. But it's a daunting task right now.
They're not really related to what people brought up tonight, but I do have some announcements. I do want to thank the Juvenile Detention Center and Judge Lancaster for allowing me to spend time within the center recently. As you all have heard throughout many commission meetings, we have concerns about our youth. And as you know, the leadership of the city, we bounce through a lot of different issues and just try to stay engaged in all of the different concerns that the citizens bring to us. So my time with the Juvenile Detention Center was well spent. I learned a lot. There were citizens there that have been here and sharing their stories, and it was just very impactful to see them influencing young kids that may be going down paths that they had experienced. And I want to also recognize Nicole Elliott. Nicole spent many years at the dispatch center and was a good friend of mine. And she passed away. She lost her battle with cancer last week. So between David and Nicole, it was just a rough week last week. And then just one good announcement, since this is the most audience time we get. People usually cut out when we get into the business stuff. The Golden Egg Hunt for downtown is on Good Friday, so next Friday, 6 to 8. We will have candy eggs and, like I said, the golden eggs. This is the 8th year I think we've done it. The golden eggs are kind of attached to bigger prizes, whether it's the businesses that have donated gift certificates. There's prizes for kids as well, because we recognize kids can find golden eggs too. So just another great community event to come down, be a part of, and enjoy our downtown. That is Good Friday, next Friday, 6 to 8. Thank you.
Yeah, since we're just doing some announcements now, I kind of expected Commissioner Tackett to mention this, but this week is Downtown Springfield Restaurant Week. I'm surprised you didn't. I know. But I would just encourage everyone to check out all of the new restaurants downtown. On this past Friday, if you went downtown for dinner, there was not a parking spot available unless it was the garage, and it was awesome to see. So definitely get out and support the local businesses.
Can I just tag off of that? I mean, the downtown businesses work so hard to collaborate. Our group meets every month, and we connect and try to find opportunities together to create things to do down here, whether it's for families or it's date night, whether it's First Fridays. We just want everyone to come down and enjoy their downtown. So I would also like to give a shout out to those businesses that work really hard to do those things. And it is our first restaurant week. And Casa was my first stop. So I hope commissioners, you guys know I'm always in Winans, but I hope you do a little tour of downtown this week as well.
Okay. We'll move on to first readings. Go ahead. By title only.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Adjournment Technologies Incorporated for the purchase and installation of inductivity coupled plasma optical emission spectrometer at the Springfield wastewater treatment plant for an amount not to exceed $81,166.48. Authorizing the city manager to enter into a data, record sharing, and access supplemental agreement by and between the city of Springfield, Ohio, and the Board of Clark County Commissioners in connection with records retention, storage, and data related to the operation of the county's 911 dispatch center for an amount not to exceed $36,395 per year for 10 years for a total amount not to exceed $363,950. Authorizing the city manager to enter into a right-of-way transfer agreement with the Clark County Land Reutilization Corporation to accept .004 acres of right-of-way along South Yellow Spring Street. Amending ordinance number 9190 passed March 12, 1991, and commonly known as the codified ordinances of the city of Springfield, Ohio, by repealing and replacing Part 11 entitled Zoning Code in its entirety. Authorizing the city manager to enter into LPA agreement number 35221, amendment number 5, between the city and the Ohio Department of Transportation in connection with the CLA State Route 72 6.83 project, PID number 113792, to provide clarity regarding the funding sources.
Thank you. I want to say I was in 2 meetings about the dispatch center in the last month. And our sheriff, Chris Clark, is committed to get this system that was in such a way that was promised to us with records management, with the ease and with efficiency. So I'm excited about that, or shared that with Dr. Estrop as well. But I just want to make sure the commission knows and the public knows this is going to be the fix that we need, and the leadership that we have in place with the dispatch center, it's going to happen. So very excited about that. And we just want to thank Sheriff Clark for his commitment to see it through and to make sure things are as they should be. And then I also would like Brian or Chris tell us about the electrospectrum regulator. What was that old cartoon, Martin the Martian guy? Yeah,
Yes.
that's what. Can you talk about it?
I would be remiss if I didn't give Chris Moore the opportunity to talk about the inductively coupled plasma optical emission spectrometer. Chris.
What would he say?
Yeah, this is exciting stuff. This is replacing an older unit we had from 2011, and we use this to test primarily for heavy metals in the waste stream. The last unit we've been piecing together, and then the last year we've had to spend $23,000 to go outside to labs to get this stuff tested. So this should pay for itself in less than 4 years. And the old one, you had to go to it and say, well, I'm looking for nickel, and it would look for nickel and tell you how much nickel. This one, it's looking for heavy metals, and it tells you all the different heavy metals in there. It will allow us to get a better characterization of our residential waste stream, and then work closer with our businesses to make sure they're not putting heavy metals into the waste stream that could harm the environment.
Thank you. Other questions about first readings?
I just wanted to build on, Mayor, what you said. Sheriff Clark, this is a very important step forward, and we're very appreciative of the attention and work that the sheriff has put in to make this system better. So, Sheriff Clark, thank you very, very much. And I'm glad I didn't wade into that first item.
Going with second readings.
Amending ordinance 2539, which authorized the purchase of one T86 T4 Bobcat compact track loader with accessories from Bobcat of Dayton through Sourcewell to revise the vendor name.
Move to adopt.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there questions from commissioners? From the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes. Now, before she continues, the next several are about the same. So we do business with several companies for landscaping and snow removal, snow care, things like that. So she's going to read through each one, but if you have any questions, we can go through them all and then explain.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Four Corner Property Management LLC for weed cutting and lot clearing services as needed by the city for an amount not to exceed $50,000, and confirming and approving related expenditures incurred from April 15, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Are there comments from commissioners? Doctor.
I know, Brian, you've answered this question several times, but and it pertains to all of these items as well as the board and secure item. Just because we have 50,000 listed doesn't mean that each company is going to get $50,000. This just gives us some flexibility, right?
Yes, that is correct, Commission. So this allows us to be able to work, if we get into a really tough time where there's a lot of rain and then trying to mow and contractors sometimes can get behind, we have the flexibility to move to a variety of different contractors to perform the work. But yeah, we do not, we authorize up to 50,000 with each, but do not spend that.
Thank you.
Comments from the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes?
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with ET's Lawn Maintenance and Landscaping LLC for weed cutting and lot clearing services as needed by the city for an amount not to exceed $50,000 and confirming and approving related expenditures incurred from April 15th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Other comments from commissioners? From the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes?
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Stinnett Industries LLC, doing business as Cut to Perfection Lawn and Snow for weed cutting and lot clearing services as needed by the city for an amount not to exceed $50,000 and confirming and approving related expenditures incurred from April 15, 2025.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Are there comments from commissioners? From the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes?
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Mike's Lawn and More LLC for weed cutting and lot clearing services as needed by the city for an amount not to exceed $50,000 and confirming and approving related expenditures incurred from April 15, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Other comments from commissioners? From the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes?
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Authorizing the exercise of the city's option to renew the contract with Lorenzo Anderson, doing business as All Things Truck Hauling and Dumpsters LLC for board and secure services as needed by the city for an amount not to exceed $50,000.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Are there comments from commissioners? Dr. Estrop?
Yeah, Mr. Heck, would you explain for the benefit of the audience what board and secure is all about, what it means, and who do we board and secure?
Yeah, so this is, a lot of it's related to residential properties, but it can also include commercial properties as well. When a property is vacant, obviously it can become a public nuisance. And so one of the things that we do work towards is to get it boarded and secured so there's not people going in and out of a structure that's probably unsafe for people to go in and out of. And so that just secures it. A great example right now is across the street, you'll see boards on the Fairbanks building, and that is to secure that facility to make sure that nobody is getting inside of.
Do the owners repay the city if we have to do the work?
Dependent on the case, yes, we will seek repayment or reimbursement for the cost it is to the city.
Thank you.
Comments from the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes?
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Authorizing the exercise of the city's option to renew the contract with OMAC Hauling Incorporated, doing business as Board and Secure LLC for board and secure services as needed by the city for an amount not to exceed $50,000.
So moved.
Been moved and seconded. Other comments from commissioners? From the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes?
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Authorizing the exercise of the city's option to renew the contract with Gary Gilbert Jr., doing business as Gilbert's Lawn Service for board and secure services as needed by the city for an amount not to exceed $50,000.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Other comments from commissioners from the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Houston,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mrs. Hackett,
Yes.
Mrs. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Rue.
Yes.
Amending Ordinance 9190 passed March 12, 1991, and commonly known as the Codified Ordinances of the City of Springfield, Ohio, by amending certain provisions of Chapter 1369 entitled Plumbing Permits and Fees.
So move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Brian, could you speak to this, or Chris?
Yes,
please?
so we work with the health department to perform the plumbing inspections and review of permits. And it has been extremely difficult to be able to find somebody that can serve in that role with the health department. And so they've had to work and contract out with various counties. And what that issue has created is when they switch, right now they're utilizing Union County, the fees could change. And so this provides flexibility as the health department has to seek out different agencies to assist or backfill in doing the plumbing permits and the inspections, that they can make that change more readily or more easily.
Good. Other comments from commissioners from the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett,
Yes.
Mrs. Brown,
Yes.
Mrs. Houston,
Yes.
Mr. Rue.
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into amendment number 1 to the purchase agreement with Clark County Land Reutilization Corporation to remove 2 properties from the purchase agreement.
So move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Other comments from commissioners? Dr. Estrop?
Why are we getting rid of these 2 properties?
These were 2 properties of part of a larger contract, and we removed 2 parcels because we were able to move them in a different manner to for redevelopment or reutilization. So
So, but they're not being left to just be vacant. There's,
correct.
so the properties are moving forward.
Yes, correct.
Great.
And can you speak to the location of those properties and what the plans are?
Logan or Steve probably could better answer.
Mayor Rue, Commissioners, good evening. The 2 properties that are being removed from this list are 511 West Pleasant Street and 128 to 132 East Euclid Avenue.
Thank you. The comments from the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Tackett,
Yes.
Mrs. Brown,
Yes.
Mrs. Houston,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mr. Rue.
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into amendment number 1 to the subrecipient funding agreement with Sheltered Inc. to extend the period of performance to September 30, 2025, and to revise the programming allocations and confirming and approving related expenditures incurred from April 1, 2025.
So move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Comments from commissioners?
Well, we sincerely appreciate the contribution. This is a great group and a great program. Thank you.
Comments from the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Brown,
Yes.
Mrs. Houston,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett,
Yes.
Mr. Rue.
Yes.
Thank you.
Authorize,
Did we miss anything? Dr. Estrop thinks we missed a,
Salt contract.
We just did the sheltered one. So it would be we should be
Yeah.
on the
That's
salt.
next.
13724 and 084-25.
that's what
that's
she's on now.
next.
That's what she's getting ready to read.
Yeah, she just read the 137-24.
Oh, I'm sorry. My mistake.
You trying to confuse me?
Yes, go ahead. So continue with
Doesn't take
084.
much in my case anymore.
We'll continue with 08425.
Thank you.
Authorizing participation in the 2025-2026 ODOT winter contract for road salt.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there other comments from commissioners? From the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Houston,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop.
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett,
Yes.
Mrs. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Rue.
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the Springfield Citizens Police Academy Alumni Association for the acceptance of a donation of one KBT breaching tool with a total value of $12,755.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. I'd like to say thank you,
Please.
Dr. Estrop.
Second.
Thank you.
No, she already, thank you for the donation. This is very helpful. I'm sure the police department is super appreciative of this. Is there anything we need to know about this other than it busts down doors?
Just a tool that helps our SWAT team and others
Safely enter
safely enter our
dangerous
structure.
situations. Excellent. There are comments from the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett,
Yes.
Mrs. Brown,
Yes.
Mrs. Houston,
Yes.
Mr. Rue.
Yes.
Declaring it necessary to require the construction or reconstruction of curbs, gutters, and sidewalks at the points identified as section number 1 of streets of the 2025 sidewalk, curb, and gutter program, phase 1.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. You want to speak to this quickly, too?
Yes, this is for phase 1 of our 2025 sidewalk, curb, and gutter program. This allows us to permission to move forward with that program, and this specifically is in the area of Northern Estates, north of Providence.
Thank you. Comments from the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Tackett,
Yes.
Mrs. Brown,
Yes.
Mrs. Houston,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mr. Rue.
Yes.
Providing for supplemental appropriations within various funds and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. Other comments from commissioners? From the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Brown,
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett,
Yes.
Mrs. Houston,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mr. Rue.
Yes.
Confirming purchases and obtaining of services for the city and providing for payments therefore and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Brian, do you want to speak to what a couple of these things are? Or Katie? Thank you.
Yeah, certainly, Mayor. I'm happy to speak to moral obligations. So going back to the beginning of the meeting when we talked about home rule, this is an example of that. Our charter calls out that moral obligations, which is any time the city receives a good or service more than $100, and we do not have a purchase order in place, that commission approves those invoices for payment. So that is what we are bringing before you this evening to approve, is to pay those vendors timely. That's why it's also an emergency, so that we don't delay payment for those goods and services that we've received. But also that $100 limit, again, speaks to home rule and that charter being in place that would require a vote of the people to change that $100 limit. You're welcome.
Other comments from the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Tackett,
Yes.
Mrs. Houston,
Yes.
Mrs. Brown,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mr. Rue.
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into Amendment 1 to the 5-year SaaS agreement with Cherry Road Technologies Incorporated for the purchase of additional licenses for the city's enterprise resource planning system to increase the agreement by $144,685.79 for a total amount not to exceed $1,760,774.99 for the 5-year term and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Could you speak to this too, please?
Certainly, Mayor. So this is related to the city's technology enhancement project. It's the implementation of Oracle, which went live last year in January of 2024. As we went live, we've been determining how many user licenses we need for that product that we've rolled out. So just a reminder, that's the transition from that black and green screen, everything being paper-based throughout the city, to moving to an Oracle, which is a cloud-based software, moving things to electronic approvals, things like that, just overall increasing efficiency. And so Oracle has been kind with us as we implement their software. And so we are paying moving forward for the number of licenses that we are using. This is to add 50 additional licenses, and the total amount is for over 3 years.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other comments from the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Houston,
Yes.
Mrs. Brown,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett,
Yes.
Mr. Rue.
Yes.
Authorizing the city's participation in the Ohio Plan Risk Management Incorporated for the period of April 1, 2025 through March 31, 2026, authorizing payment to the Ohio Plan in an amount not to exceed $800,000 in premiums for law enforcement liability, EMS liability, public officials, general liability, automobile, property, and inland marine, excess liability, surplus, and equipment breakdown through the premium period, authorizing the city manager, finance director, and law director to do all things and execute all documents they consider necessary to participate in the Ohio Plan and to comply with all relevant local, state, and federal legal requirements, confirming and approving related expenditures incurred from April 1, 2025, and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. You want to speak to this too? I assume this is insurance? And then
Yes.
what has been the increase year over year?
Yes, Mayor. So this is the overall blanket insurance coverage policy for the city. The overall increase is 22.5%. And just a number that I want to highlight, if we take the cost of a police cruiser, what we insured in 2020 for the cost of replacement was $38,000. In 2025, that cost is nearing $65,000. So the 22.5% increase, when you look at also the city opening new buildings, improving our fire stations, the cost to replace those is much higher. So that 22.5% is what we're seeing as an increase. You're welcome.
Other comments from the audience? Or call the roll?
Mrs. Brown.
Here.
Mrs. Houston.
Yes.
Yes.
Mrs. Houston.
Yes.
Dr. Estrop.
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett.
Yes.
Mr. Rue.
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a sub-grant award agreement for the acceptance of the 2023 Burn Justice Assistance Grant Program Award to provide funding in the amount of $7,797 to purchase translation devices for the municipal court clerk's office and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Other comments from commissioners?
Good news.
Yes. From the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Dr. Estrop.
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett.
Yes.
Mrs. Brown.
Yes.
Mrs. Houston.
Yes.
Mr. Rue.
Yes.
This last item was added to the agenda. Consenting to the appointment of Seth Flora to the Board of Zoning Appeals and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Comments from commissioners? Just want to say thank you, Seth, for continuing to serve. Comments from the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Tackett.
Yes.
Mrs. Houston.
Yes.
Mrs. Brown.
Yes.
Dr. Estrop.
Yes.
Mr. Rue.
Yes. Are there any other announcements? I move those to the beginning. We got more. Go ahead. Commissioner Tackett.
I missed one. So there is a downtown cleanup prepared and organized for April 26th, 9 to 12 p.m. at the Springfield YMCA. During this cleanup, they ask that you bring comfortable clothes and lots of energy, and you can register online. That's pretty complicated, so let's do phone number 937-521-2020. They provide the supplies, snacks, and plenty of good vibes. So thank you for everybody that's working through Earth Day and cleanups this month.
I think that we'll be at one of the elementary schools for Arbor Day again. Mr. Tackett and I went there last year. It was fun. Then we get
Yep.
Yes. So, thank you for coming. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Brown.
Yes.
Mrs. Houston.
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett.
Yes.
Dr. Estrop.
Yes.
Mr. Rue.
Yes. Just want to say it's been well over a year. No offense to any other meetings that we finished before 8 o'clock efficiently with detail. Thank you.